There are cartoons you grow out of, and then there are cartoons that somehow grow with you. Avatar: The Last Airbender isn't just one of the best animated shows of all time. It's one of the most emotionally intelligent stories ever told on television. A show that started with goofy jokes, a flying bison, and slapstick humor, and slowly turned into a story about trauma, responsibility, war, forgiveness, and identity. And somehow it stuck the landing. 20 years later, we're still talking about it, still analyzing it, still learning from it. And today I want to break down why Avatar still matters and how its characters are the reason this show became legendary. Avatar: The Last Airbender exploded onto the scene in mid-2000s with something most cartoons didn't have: trust in its audience. It trusted kids to understand loss, it trusted teens to understand moral conflict, and it trusted animation to tell a story with weight. With this fluid animation, jaw-dropping world building, and deeply human characters, Avatar didn't just become popular, it became timeless. It taught us to face fear instead of running from it, to let go of guilt, to lean on people we trust, and to believe that growth is possible even after failure. And when you combine that message with this movement-based bending system, Avatar felt ahead of its time. Avatar's world works because its magic system isn't just cool, it's character-driven. Each bending style reflects the person using it. Bloodbending is horrifying and is created by Hama in a moment of pure desperation and darkness. That ability didn't corrupt her by accident, it was born from trauma, isolation, and survival. Metal bending wasn't locked through rage or domination. Toph created it by listening, by feeling the impurities in the metal, something she does every day just to survive as a blind earthbender. Lightning bending? Cold, precise, emotionless. Azul and Ozai didn't use lightning because they're powerful, they use it because they stripped emotion down to pure intent. And even the smallest details matter. Momo, Appa, quiet background moments. Whether intentional or not, when a show is written this well, everything becomes meaningful, and that's why Avatar works. The world only works because the characters feel real. Not perfect, not always heroic, but human. So in this video, I'm breaking down each core character, their growth, their flaws, their relationships, and why they matter. Katara isn't just the girl who bends water, she's the character who holds the entire story together. Think about it, without Katara, Aang never leaves the iceberg. Without Katara, Team Avatar never becomes a family. And without Katara, the Avatar might never have saved the world. But here's the thing, Katara isn't perfect, she's controlling, she's emotional, she messes up a lot. She hurts people, she doubts herself, she nearly loses herself to revenge. And that's exactly why she's one of the most powerful and complex characters in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Today we're diving deep into Katara's highs, her lowest moments, her growth, her setbacks, and the relationships that shaped her. From season 1 all the way to the end of season 3. This isn't just a character breakdown, this is the story of a girl who learned how to carry the weight of the world without letting it drown her. When Avatar starts, Katara is just a teenage girl from the South Pole, one of the last waterbenders in her tribe raised in a world defined by loss. Her mother was killed, her father left to fight a war, and Katara, she stayed behind. From the very beginning, Katara isn't just a bender, she's a caretaker, a leader, and emotionally an adult way too early. And that foundation shapes everything she becomes. In season 1, Katara's biggest strength is also her biggest flaw. She feels responsible for everyone. She mothers Sokka, she protects Aang, she believes it's her job to keep the group together, even when it costs her. But here's what makes early Katara so compelling. She doesn't actually believe in herself yet. She wants to be a great waterbender, but she's insecure. She compares herself constantly, and when she struggles, her emotions literally explode. Sometimes freezing people, sometimes sinking boats, but Katara's bending is tied directly to her feeling. When she's calm, she's precise. When she's angry or hurt, her power becomes unstable. And that's not just accidental storytelling. Katara's waterbending reflects her emotional state because she hasn't learned how to process grief yet. She carries the loss of her mother silently, and when those feelings surface, they come out sideways, as jealousy, frustration, or even anger. One of her earliest low points is watching Aang surpass her in waterbending almost immediately. She's worked her whole life for this, he just does it. And instead of being proud, she feels invisible. That jealousy is not pettiness, it's pain. But then something shifts. When Katara stands up to sexist traditions in Northern Water Tribe, we see her first true turning point. She refuses to accept that the world gets to decide her limits, and for the first time, Katara just doesn't want to be strong, she demands it. By the end of season 1, Katara becomes Aang's waterbending teacher, not because she's the best bender yet, but because she believes she can be. Season 2, Katara is stronger, more confident, more skilled, and far more dangerous. This is where Katara's growth accelerates, but so do her inner conflicts. She's no longer just the emotional heart of the group, she becomes one of its most capable fighters, and that scares her because power for Katara has always been tied to trauma. Her relationship with Aang deepens here, not romantically, but emotionally. She becomes his anchor, the person who believes in him when he doesn't believe in himself. But here's the problem, Katara starts believing that if she holds everything together, nothing will fall apart, and that's an impossible standard. Her biggest low point this season comes with bloodbending. Katara doesn't seek it out, but when she uses it, the look on her face says everything. She's horrified because for the first time she realizes she's capable of doing something truly terrible. And the scariest part, it works. Katara hates the feeling of control, but she also understands it. This moment fundamentally changes her. It forced her to confront a truth that she's been avoiding. Being powerful doesn't automatically make you good. By the end of season 2, Katara isn't just fighting enemies anymore, she's fighting herself. Season 3, Katara is at her most intense. The war is real now. The stakes are final, and Katara's unresolved grief finally demands attention. This season strips away her composure composure. She becomes colder, more guarded, less forgiving. And then comes the confrontation she's been avoiding her entire life. Her mother's killer. This is Katara, her emotional breaking point. For once, she doesn't want to be the bigger person. She doesn't want peace. She wants justice or maybe revenge. And the beauty of this arc is that Avatar doesn't rush her healing. Katara's allowed to be angry. She's allowed to hate. She's allowed to not know what the right choice is. And when she finally stands face to face with the man who caused her pain, she doesn't find closure the way she expected, because closure isn't about punishment. It's about choosing who you are. Katara walks away not because she's weak, but because she's strong enough to stop the cycle. That moment defines her. By the finale, Katara isn't just a healer. She's a master waterbender, a leader, a woman who understands her emotions instead of fearing them. Every major relationship in Katara's life reflects a part of her journey. Sokka reminds her of home and responsibility. Toph challenges her control. Zuko mirrors her pain and anger. Aang represents hope in the future she's afraid to imagine. Katara doesn't just change herself, she changes everyone around her. Katara's story isn't about becoming the strongest bender, it's about learning how to live with grief without letting it define you. She shows us that kindness can coexist with strength, that anger doesn't make you broken, and that healing isn't linear. It's a choice that you make every day. Katara isn't just the heart of Team Avatar, she's proof that empathy is a form of power. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is choose not to become your pain. What if you woke up tomorrow and find out you were the only person on Earth who could stop a 100-year war, but you were also 12 years old, and everyone you ever loved was already gone? That's Aang's story. Not just a fun air-scooting, penguin-sledding kid we meet in episode 1, but a boy carrying guilt, grief, and responsibility so heavy it nearly breaks him. Today we're breaking down Aang's entire journey, the biggest highs, his lowest moments, his growth, his failures, and the relationships that shaped him, from book 1 all the way to the finale of book 3. Because Aang isn't just the Avatar, he's one of the most quietly complex protagonists in animated storytelling, and by the end of this video, you might see him very differently. When people think of Avatar: Last Airbender, they often think of the epic fights, bending battles, or Zuko's redemption arc, but Aang, he's sometimes reduced to the goofy kid, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Aang's story isn't about becoming stronger, it's about learning how to live with impossible responsibility without losing who you are. So let's start at the very beginning, before the war, before the ice, before the guilt. When we first meet Aang, he's already made the biggest mistake of his life. Finding out he's the Avatar earlier than expected terrifies him, not because he's weak, but because being the Avatar means losing his childhood. So he runs, and that single choice costs him everything. By the time Aang wakes up frozen in the iceberg, the air nomads are gone. His people killed by genocide, and the war he was meant to stop has already raged for 100 years. Here's what makes this powerful. Aang doesn't immediately process that loss. Instead, he smiles, he jokes, he plays, because that's how kids survive trauma. But cracks start to show almost immediately. His first highs are discovering Katara and Sokka, reconnecting with the world, flying freely again, realizing he still has purpose. And these moments matter because they remind Aang and us that life still exists after tragedy. But book 1 slowly peels back the mask. The Southern Air Temple episode is the first emotional gut punch. Aang sees Monk Gyatso remains, and for the first time, that weight hits him. He didn't just lose his people, he blames himself for it. The guilt becomes Aang's defining eternal conflict for the entire series. Every town destroyed, every life lost, every Fire Nation victory. In Aang's mind, it all traces back to the moment he ran away. Book 1 introduces the Avatar state as something terrifying. It's raw, emotional, and fueled by pain, not mastery. Aang doesn't activate it through wisdom, he activates it through fear and grief, which is important because it shows us early on power alone will never solve Aang's problem. Aang's relationships are the emotional anchors that keep him human. Katara is warmth, compassion, and belief. She doesn't see Aang as a weapon or a savior, she sees a kid who needs support. But their relationship isn't perfect. Aang becomes emotionally dependent on Katara at times, clinging to her as stability in a world that took everything else from him. Sokka grounds Aang, he challenges him, questions him, and treats him like a teammate, not a deity. This balance matters more than people realize. In book 1, Zuko is the monster chasing him, but symbolically Zuko represents what Aang fears becoming, someone consumed by destiny. Book 2 is where Aang optimism truly gets tested. The world stops being an adventure and starts being a responsibility. Earthbending is Aang's hardest element for a reason. Air is freedom, earth is stubbornness. To learn it, Aang must stand his ground, something he's avoided his entire life. Toph forces Aang to stop dodging problems and face them head on. And while he improves physically, emotionally, things get worse. Everyone expects Aang to master all 4 elements, defeat the Fire Lord, end the war, and never fail. But he's still a kid who just learned how to stand his ground yesterday. This is Aang's lowest point. He's given a choice, let go of earthly attachments or save Katara. And Aang chooses love, not selfishly, but humanly. The result, he's struck down, literally. This moment matters because it proves something vital. Aang is willing to fail as the Avatar to stay true to himself, and that choice nearly cost him everything. Book 3 begins with Aang broken, physically scarred, spiritually shaken, emotionally uncertain, and he's terrified of failure, terrified of hurting people, terrified of becoming the thing that everyone expects him to be. Aang briefly considers disappearing, not out of fear, but doubt. What if he isn't the right person for this? That question haunts him. But Zuko's arrival forces Aang to confront forgiveness, and this is huge, because forgiving Zuko means forgiving himself. It's Aang realizing that people can change and that mistakes don't define your entire existence. Firebending teaches Aang restraint. Unlike the destructive fire he once feared, true fire comes from balance, not rage. And this mirrors Aang's internal journey. The final battle isn't about who's stronger, it's about who stays true. Aang refuses to kill Ozai not because he's weak, but because he refuses to sacrifice his values to win. This is the accumulation of everything. His guilt, his compassion, his refusal to become a weapon. Energy bending isn't a shortcut, it's a reward for unwavering integrity. Aang doesn't end the war by becoming something else, he ends it by becoming fully himself. Aang's story story isn't about perfection, it's about choosing kindness when the world demands cruelty, choosing mercy when vengeance feels easier, and growing up without losing your soul. That's why Aang still matters, and that's why his story lasts. If you enjoyed this deep dive, drop a like, subscribe for more Avatar breakdowns, and let me know which Aang moment hit you the hardest. Zuko doesn't start Avatar Last Airbender as a hero. He doesn't even start as a good person. He starts angry, obsessed, alone. And for most of the series, he's chasing something he doesn't even understand. What makes Zuko special isn't that he changes, it's how painfully slow, realistic, and uncomfortable that change is. This isn't a story about destiny saving someone. It's about someone unlearning everything they were taught and choosing who they want to be. Today we're breaking down Zuko's entire journey, his failures, relapses, relationships, and moments that almost broke him, across all 3 seasons of Avatar The Last Airbender. And by the end, you'll understand why Zuko isn't just a fan favorite. He's one of the best written characters in television. Redemption arcs are everywhere, but most of them are rushed, clean, convenient. Zuko isn't. Zuko's arc is messy. He backslides. He makes the wrong choice over and over again. And that's what makes it feel real. So let's start where his pain begins, not with the scar, but with the belief that he was never enough. When we meet Zuko, he's defined by one word: honor. But Zuko doesn't actually understand what honor is. To him, honor means approval, specifically his father's approval. Zuko's scar isn't just physical, it's psychological. Ozai burned Zuko not because Zuko was weak, but because Zuko was compassionate. Zuko spoke out of turn to protect soldiers, and he was punished for caring. From that moment on, Zuko learned a dangerous lesson: love is conditional, and he spends book 1 trying to earn it back. Chasing the Avatar isn't about the Avatar, it's about believing that he completes this impossible task, his father will finally see him as worthy. This is why Zuko never gives up, even when he's starving, even when he's freezing, even when he's clearly losing. Uncle Iroh represents everything Zuko needs, but he isn't ready to hear it. Iroh offers compassion, perspective, a different definition of honor, and Zuko just rejects it. Not because he hates Iroh, but because accepting Iroh means admitting his father might be wrong, and Zuko isn't ready for that. Zuko loses constantly in book 1. He fails publicly, he's humiliated repeatedly, and each loss makes him angrier. But here's the key detail: Zuko never gives up because he believes he deserves better, but at the same time, he keeps going because he believes he deserves nothing. That mindset fuels him and destroys him. Book 2 is where Zuko's story gets complicated, because for the first time, he loses the one thing keeps him moving. Zuko becomes a refugee. He has no nation, no mission, and no identity. And this is huge. For the first time, he lives among the people his nation hurt. He sees poverty, fear, consequences, and no one knows who he is, which leads to the question he's been avoiding: if I'm not the Fire Prince, then who am I? Zuko alone. This episode is the core of Zuko's arc. We see his inner conflict made literal. The version of Zuko raised by Ozai and the version shaped by Iroh and his mother. And neither side wins because growth doesn't happen all at once. This is Zuko's biggest failure. He has everything he thought he wanted: his father's approval, his place restored, his honor returned, and it feels empty. Zuko chooses Azula. He betrays Iroh, and for a brief moment he thinks he's won, but he hasn't. Zuko gets everything he's ever wanted, and he's miserable. Being back home doesn't heal Zuko, it exposes the lie he's been living. His anger doesn't go away, his nightmares doesn't stop, and his scar still burns, because honor earned through cruelty isn't honor at all. The most devastating punishment Zuko ever received isn't from Ozai, it's Iroh refusing to speak to him. And for the first time, Zuko understands what he's lost. Zuko doesn't join Team Avatar because it's easy, he joins them because it's right. And he expects them to hate him, because he hates himself. This is Zuko at his bravest, not fighting but apologizing. And slowly, painfully, he earns trust. Iroh teaches him unconditional love. Azula shows him what he could have been. Aang shows him mercy, and Katara shows him accountability. Each relationship forcing Zuko to confront a different truth about himself. Zuko doesn't defeat Ozai, and he doesn't save the world alone. He does something harder. He breaks a cycle. He chooses kindness over cruelty, truth over comfort, and responsibility over ego. Zuko's redemption works because it's earned. And it reminds us becoming better isn't about one big moment, it's about choosing right again and again even after you fail. Zuko's story proves that you're not defined by where you come from, but by the choices you make when it matters most. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more Avatar deep dives, and comment below at what point did Zuko become your favorite character. If I told you the strongest Earthbender in Avatar Last Airbender was a 12-year-old blind girl who hated being protected, hated being underestimated, and secretly hated herself for needing anyone at all. Toph Beifong isn't just a fan favorite because she's funny, blunt, or overpowered. She's beloved because she represents something deeply human: the fight between independence and vulnerability. She didn't just invent metal bending, she reinvented what strength looked like in Avatar. And today we're breaking down Toph's entire journey, her highs, her lowest moments, her growth, her setbacks, and the relationships that shaped her from book 2 all the way to the finale. Because Toph isn't just tough, she's terrified, and that's what makes her incredible. But before we dive in, if you love deep character breakdowns, storytelling, and Avatar analysis, consider subscribing. Now let's talk about the girl who sees the world better than anyone, without ever even opening her eye. When we first meet Toph in The Blind Bandit, she feels unstoppable. She's undefeated, she's confident, she's mocking grown men while destroying them in underground earthbending rings. And instantly we're told this is the strongest earthbender alive. But here's the thing, Toph's strength is built on a lie. Not her blindness, her freedom. At home, Toph isn't allowed to be strong. She's not allowed to be loud, she's not allowed to be herself. And to her parents, she's fragile, proclaimed. A mistake waiting to happen. And that pressure is what creates the Blind Bandit. Toph isn't just showing off, she's rebelling. Every punch is a scream saying, I exist, I matter, I'm not broken. And that's why our introduction works so well, because she's not flexing, she's escaping. When Toph joins Team Avatar, it looks like a win. She's free, she's traveling, she's teaching the Avatar. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Toph isn't actually good at teamwork. She's blunt, she's rude, she refuses to help. Even even when she needs it. And at first, it's funny. Her banter with Katara, iconic. Her roasting Sokka, legendary. But underneath the humor is something darker. Toph equates help with weakness, because her entire life help meant control. So when Katara mothers her, Toph snaps. When the group worries about her blindness, she lashes out. When people doubt her abilities even gently, it feels like betrayal. And this leads to one of her biggest flaws. Toph doesn't communicate vulnerability, she weaponizes independence instead. Toph's lowest point in book 2 doesn't come from losing a fight, it comes from being useless. In the desert, Toph can't see sand. Her seismic sense fails her. For the first time, her greatest strength abandons her, and she spirals. She becomes angry, defensive, cruel. But here's the key moment. When Appa is gone, Toph breaks. She doesn't cry, she doesn't ask for help, she lashes out. Because Toph doesn't know how to grieve with others. This is where her armor cracks. She's not strong here, she's scared, and for the first time, she doesn't know how to fix it. Then comes the Guru and the Earth King, captured, imprisoned, locked in metal. For anyone else, this would be the end. For Toph, it's the beginning of something revolutionary. Metal bending isn't just a new power, it's a philosophical breakthrough. Toph realizes that nothing is pure, that even the strongest walls have flaws, and that realization mirrors her internal growth. She doesn't escape by overpowering the metal, she escapes by listening, feeling, adapting. This is the first time Toph evolves not through brute force but through awareness, and that's huge. By book 3, Toph is fully realized as a fighter. She's elite, feared, respected, but emotionally, she's still behind. Her conflict with Katara resurfaces, she struggles to express her gratitude, she hides affection behind sarcasm, and then comes one of her most telling moments, when she runs away from home again. Toph could have gone back, could have reconciled, but she doesn't, because vulnerability still scares her more than loneliness, and that's tragic. Let's talk relationships. Katara challenges Toph's worldview. She represents care without control, and Toph resents her for it until she learns to accept it. Aang respects Toph's strength. He listens, he trusts her, and she gives him exactly what he needs. Grounding. Sokka treats Toph like an equal. No pity, no overthinking, just trust, and that's why their bond works so well. Toph doesn't need to be protected, she needs to be seen. Toph Beifong isn't perfect, she's not kind, she's not soft, but she's real. She teaches us that strength doesn't mean ever needing help. It means choosing when to accept it. Toph starts her journey believing vulnerability is a weakness. She ends it understanding that connection is power. And that's why years later, Toph Beifong is still one of the greatest characters in animation history. Because she doesn't just bend Earth, she bent expectations. Sokka has no bending, no destiny, no spiritual connection to the universe, and somehow he might be the most important person to Avatar: The Last Airbender. While everyone else is learning how to bend the elements, Sokka is learning something harder. How to matter when you're the weakest one in the room. He's the joke, the comic relief, the guy who messes up the plans, until you realize he's the one making them. Today we're breaking down Sokka's entire journey, from insecure village kid to war-ending strategist. His biggest wins, his worst failures, his relationships, heartbreaks, and growth across all 3 seasons. Because Sokka doesn't bend elements, he bends the story. Before we jump in, if you enjoy deep character breakdowns of Avatar storytelling, consider subscribing. Now let's talk about the guy who started as a comic relief and ended as a legend. When we first meet Sokka, he's kinda awful. Sexist, arrogant, overcompensating, swinging a boomerang like confidence is a weapon. But here's the thing, Sokka isn't confident, he's scared. He's the man of his village. His father is gone, the warriors are gone, and Sokka's trying desperately to fill a role he isn't ready for. The sexism in episode 1, that bravado, it's not hatred, it's insecurity. And the moment Suki humbles him, beats him, educates him, and doesn't hate him for being wrong, Sokka changes. Not instantly, but fundamentally. This is the first crack in Sokka's armor. As that journey continues, Sokka becomes the funny one. The sarcasm, the bad plans, the meat obsession. But humor is the defense mechanism. Sokka is surrounded by prodigies. Aang bends all 4 elements. Katara masters waterbending. Toph invents metal bending. Sokka sharpens sticks, and that eats at him. We see it clearly in Bato of the Water Tribe and the library. He wants purpose, he wants to contribute, he wants to feel like he belongs. And when he fails, he spirals. Sokka's greatest fear isn't death, it's being useless. Let's talk about Sokka's lowest point, the Day of the Black Sun. This was his plan, his strategy, his moment, and it fails badly. The Fire Lord isn't there, the invasion collapses, people are captured, and Sokka blames himself. This is the weight of leadership. When things go wrong, you don't get to laugh at all. Sokka doesn't break down on screen, but you feel it. This is the moment he stops being comedic relief forever. In Serpiando, this episode is everything Sokka needed. For the first time, someone says you don't need bending to be powerful. Sokka learns discipline, craft, strategy, and when Piando reveals himself as the White Lotus member, Sokka realizes intelligence is a weapon. Not flashy, not loud, but deadly. This is where Sokka stops comparing himself to benders and starts becoming himself. Yue is Sokka's first love and his first heartbreak. Yue teaches Sokka that love can be fleeting and meaningful anyway. Her sacrifice changes him. Suki is Sokka's equal. She doesn't need saving, she fights beside him, and when she's captured, Sokka doesn't rage. He plans. That's growth. Within Team Avatar, Sokka becomes the glue, the strategist, the one who sees the bigger picture. He's not the strongest, he's the smartest. But by the finale, Sokka isn't trying to prove himself, he just acts. He leads the airship invasion, takes out combustion engines, coordinates attacks, no bending, no destiny, just preparation, and it works. Sokka's story is about earning your place, about failing, learning, trying again. He reminds us that we don't need superpowers to matter. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can bring to the table is your mind. And that's why Sokka isn't just comedic relief, he's a hero. Azula doesn't fall because she's evil, she falls because she's perfect. Perfectly trained, perfectly obedient, perfectly alone. While Avatar: Last Airbender is a story about balance, healing, and growth, Azula is a story of what happens when love is replaced with expectations. She's one of the most terrifying villains in animation history, not because she's powerful, but because she believes power is the only thing that makes her worthy. Today we're breaking down Azula's entire journey, her brilliance, her cruelty, her relationships, her victories, and the slow, devastating collapse that leads to one of the most haunting finales in animation. Because Azula didn't lose to the Avatar, she lost to herself. If you enjoy deep dive character breakdowns, psychology-driven storytelling, and Avatar analysis that treats these characters like real people, consider subscribing. Now let's talk about the Fire Nation's greatest weapon and its greatest strategy. Azula doesn't start in book 2. She starts in childhood. From the moment she can walk, Azula is rewarded for one thing: excellence. She's a prodigy, a tactical genius, a firebending monster. And unlike Zuko, Azula is never punished. She's praised, elevated, chosen. Ozai doesn't love Azula, he uses her. And Ursa, her mother, Azula knows whether it's true or not that Ursa feared her. That moment where Azula says, "My own mother thought I was a monster," that's the seed. Azula learns early. Love is conditional, fear is reliable, perfection is survival, and so she becomes perfect. When Azula finally appears in book 2, she steals the show instantly. She doesn't shout, she doesn't reign, she calculates. Her fire is blue, hotter, cleaner, more refined, a visual metaphor for her mind. Azula doesn't conquer through strength, she conquers through psychological warfare. She manipulates Zuko, she weaponizes fear, she turns allies against each other with a smile, and for a while it works. This is Azula at her highest peak. She has control, she has loyalty, she has purpose. But here's the problem: Azula's control is built on fear, not trust, and fear has an expiration date. Zuko is everything Azula hates and envies. He's flawed, emotional, unstable, but he's loved. Azula constantly undermines Zuko because his existence threatens her worldview. If Zuko, who fails, can still be loved, then what does that say about her? When it comes to Mai and Ty Lee, Azula calls them friends, but friendship to Azula means obedience. Mai stays because she's numb, Ty Lee stays because she's afraid, and Azula never notices the difference. She believes fear is loyalty, and that mistake destroys her. Azula's greatest triumph was the triumph of Ba Sing Se. She does what no Fire Nation general could do. She takes the city from the inside. She manipulates Long Fang. She breaks Zuko. She kills the Avatar, and this should be her crowning moment. But notice something: she doesn't celebrate because achievement doesn't fulfill Azula. It only raises the bar. Perfection has no finish line. Book 3 is where Azula starts to unravel. Her friends leave her, Mai betrays her, Ty Lee turns on her. For the first time in her life, fear fails, and Azula has no backup plan. She becomes paranoid, controlling, unhinged. The hallucinations start. Her mother's voice haunts her, because deep down Azula isn't afraid of losing power, she's afraid of being unlovable. And the final Agni Kai isn't just a battle, it's a funeral. Azula cheats, she breaks tradition, she lashes out wildly, because in the end she's already lost. Zuko fights with balance, with purpose, with clarity. Azula fights like a cornered animal. And noticing this, she does a move so deep and dirty. She tries to attack an off-guard Katara to throw Zuko off balance, but in turn this unfortunately leads to her loss. And when she loses, she doesn't rage, she collapses, screaming, crying, broken. This isn't justice, it's tragedy. Azula is what happens when a child is taught that love must be earned. She isn't born cruel, she's trained. Her downfall isn't weakness, it's the inevitable result of isolation. Azula never learned how to fail, never learned how to be vulnerable, never learned how to be loved, and that's why she's unforgettable. Because in a show about redemption, Azula reminds us that not everyone gets saved, and sometimes the scariest villain of all is expectation. Every one of these characters pushed the story forward. Their conflicts weren't filler, they were the story. Avatar gave us heroes who failed, villains who felt real, and consequences that actually stuck. And while a lot of shows in the 2000s were canceled early or ended poorly, Avatar was allowed to finish a real ending, a complete arc, and that's rare. The final stretch of Avatar might be one of the greatest endings in animation history. Aang vs. Ozai wasn't just a fight, it was philosophy, identity, and restraint colliding. The choreography, the pacing, the silence between blows, that fight fed generations. And by the end of the series, what started as a goofy adventure became a full emotional spectrum. Joy, fear, anxiety, grief, hope. These weren't just kids anymore, they were soldiers, leaders, survivors, and they won. Except for Azula, who didn't just lose the war, but lost herself. What a lot of people didn't realize is that Avatar kept going. The comics continued the story, Zuko finding his mother, Azula returning, Toph confronting her family, and Sokka and Katara returning home. There's still so much story left to tell. And now with this new Avatar movie featuring the gang on the way, fans are hopeful again, because this is a universe worth returning to. Huge respects to the Avatar writers for listening to fans, respecting the audience, and creating something that still resonates decades later. This isn't just one of the best cartoons ever made, it's one of the most meaningful. So if you want more Avatar content, deep dives into the world, breakdowns of characters like Boomy, Ty Lee, or Uncle Iroh, or even a full episode analysis, let's try to get this video to 45 likes. Comment for the algorithm, share if you enjoyed, and subscribe to join the community. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for watching, and I hope and pray you have a blessed day.